I'll tell you when we're live. And we are live. So, a couple seconds early. Might have a couple people jumping on still. Uh, but today I would like to welcome my friend and colleague, Joe Sadow. Sadow or Sadow?
Either one, yeah. Sadow,
I,
I think, is
I just
is
realized I
usually
didn't
what
know
I
I
hear.
didn't know how to pronounce your last name.
Either
Sadow.
way.
So anyway, we work together at Edrington Health Consulting, and Joe also teaches at a community college, which I thought was great because, as you guys know, that's something that I've been pursuing myself, is teaching, and especially in math, actuarial science, that kind of stuff. So Joe is an interesting character, and he has a lot of interesting hobbies as well. So welcome, Joe.
Well, I'm glad an internet sensation, such as myself, can be here to help your channel grow. But no, it's seriously, thanks for having me on. I'm joining a cast of pretty honorable alumni, of your channel. So
and
that's fun.
and you are honorable as well. So uh, we could just start off with maybe just a little bit of background about yourself. Give the viewers an idea of kind of how you got to where you're at now, and then we'll jump on in.
Yeah, so born here in Phoenix, went over to ASU. Pretty much that's all I've known. So I haven't gone out of the state too much. I did an internship in Massachusetts, and that's really the major venture out of the state there. Um, but yeah, loved the experience at ASU. Know a bunch of folks at the other colleges as well. Of course, majored in math, and that's probably going to be the talking point of today, sort of the math and what we think about it.
Hmm.
Um, but I mean, other than that, not too exotic. Um,
That's cool. So, I mean, how did you find out about the actuarial profession? Because you started out in teaching, is that correct?
yeah, so a couple of years of teaching experience there, not the high school level, but just really the college level. Although I'm not super opposed to high school level stuff. But yeah, kind of just found out about it naturally on my own. I guess I never really went to the career center, although I probably should have. But no, I basically was scouring data related jobs,
Yeah.
and based off of my own degree, that seemed to be pop up the most is stuff having to do with insurance. So that kind of was a natural landing spot for a lot of people, I think, that go into math.
So, had you taken one of those career surveys, what would you be? Maybe like a kayak tour guide or something?
Oh yeah, how did you
I,
know?
that's just what I pictured, you know?
I can barely swim. I think I'd be a one trip kayak.
Oh, okay.
Start
There
there.
you go. um, oh, I got my PDF thing popping up here. So I was going to ask you, in terms of comparing academia to being in the industry, obviously you're doing actuarial science, but just an industry job in general in a STEM related field, how would you compare
Mhm.
the two?
Yeah, it's a super deep question, and there's lots of stuff written about it. One of the books I've read, sort of on the topic, is by Kevin Carey, who is, I think, some sort of education think tank leader. But and his book is one of many. But pretty much, I would say the large difference is that of like demand. So there's just so many people out there vying for like professor jobs or something like that. Whereas in industry, you just have a lot more options. So the economics is pretty interesting, but pretty much the trend I think is that colleges have tended to hire adjuncts more and more as time has gone on. So you'll see, something like, and I forget the stats, but 30-40% of people teaching stuff at the universities are adjuncts. And that's on purpose. Of course, they don't have to give benefits and stuff like this, but so I think that's kind of the major downside to comparing those two sort of fields. But there's a couple pros. Like I think there's a few industry jobs that still care about research. Like you can still be a research statistician or research mathematician out there
Yep.
and not work at a college, which is cool.
That's
So
true, and I feel like there's a lot of government positions, at least like with statistics. I think with math as well, where they actually want PhDs, and they hire PhDs to do stuff for them.
Yeah, and one of my friends who did a postdoc with me at ASU, she has that issue. So she wants to go work in industry and has a PhD in applied math, but the issue is that she is not a citizen, right? So like
Oh,
those
okay.
types of
Yeah.
jobs just aren't even an option for her. So she's
Yep.
having some issues. So that's kind of unfortunate. But yeah, it's
Interesting. Yeah.
a shout out to The End of College. I think it's called by Kevin Carey, where he talks about that. But I'm not saying that college is evil and stuff, but it's just sort of it's an interesting trend.
Yeah.
And
What do you think's gonna happen with? I'm just curious with your perspective on this with the pandemic and everything. Um, Colleges and universities have struggled quite a bit with enrollment. Although I do know a lot of their money does come from grants as well. So, do you think the traditional system that we're in now is going to change drastically?
yeah, I would say I think online, the fact that there's a lot of material online has a lot to say about it, like your Udemy and your Coursera's.
Yep.
And what's interesting was when the internet was young, like 2000 or something. I think one of the colleges, like Cornell or something, tried to like post or publish their material online, but at a paid fee. Like you'd have to pay to go to that,
Oh,
and it
interesting.
seemed
Yeah.
to it seemed to crash and burn almost right away. But you have your MIT OpenCourseWare, which is still going strong, and it's completely free. Yet people still go to MIT and pay them. So
Yeah, it's interesting.
it's a weird situation,
Do
but
you,
yeah, something.
I've thought about that because there is so much free stuff online. I do think part of it is the discipline aspect because like when you put yourself in that school setting, like you're forced to do stuff, whereas on your own, you may not do all that on yourself. And I think that people still have some value in that piece of paper type thing,
Yeah,
maybe.
no,
But
I
it,
think that's true. Like I think a lot of people, maybe 10 years ago, are like bookstores are going to go away, but I think bookstores have been doing pretty well. So I think people like that physical aspect of stuff.
yeah,
Yeah,
it's interesting.
yeah.
So for yourself though, you got your master's in math, and that was at ASU. Is that right?
Yep. So I went to ASU, I don't know, 2015 to or 2012 to 2018. So I got undergrad and a master's in passing from them. So yeah, I know a lot of the faculty over there. Cool place. I would say, well, I had enrolled in the PhD program, right? So, and I gotten through most of the requirements for the PhD. Although when it came time to the dissertation, I just didn't really have a lot of inspiration
Mm-hmm.
what to write about, and that seems to be the important part. Um,
Is
but
it
no, it's a good program.
what's the phrase for it? All but dissertation, is it ABD or something? Or
Oh
I've heard
yeah,
people say that.
right. No, that's cool. The
Yeah.
coursework is mainly focused around biology. I would say like a lot of professors research mathematical biology, and
Okay.
so there's a lot of papers coming out about, of course, coronavirus and stuff.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah.
But I was interested in physics stuff, so it was a little bit of a disconnect. Yeah.
So, what was your motivation to get your master's in math? Was it just kind of one of those things you always liked? You liked doing math and kind of went that route?
Yeah, in retrospect, it was just a series of insane choices by me, kind of out of high school. I enrolled at ASU in engineering, and then I got to the engineering courses, and for whatever reason, I kind of freaked out. It's like, this is kind of hard. So for some weird reason, I saw the proof classes that math people have to take. It's like that seems easier.
For some weird reason.
So I did that. It ended up being a great amount of fun
Yeah.
because at that point I had not seen proofs, and I would argue I had not seen math as a result. Right?
Yeah.
That seems to be what math really is. But yeah, from there I kind of did well in the undergrad program, and because I knew a lot of the people in charge of the grad program, they kind of convinced me to continue on that way. Um,
That's awesome.
Good time, but even better company. Lots of good folks.
Yeah. Yeah. So then you basically, after that, you started teaching, got into the actuarial stuff, which we'll talk about in a minute. But I thought it'd be interesting to discuss a little bit about the typical stuff, just kind of focusing on the math side, the typical stuff that an undergrad in math might focus on, or people that are interested in a math degree, like what kind of classes they might take going through that.
Yeah, curious to see what anybody who has gone through math thinks about that problem. It's certainly not an obvious question because the goal of university is to on one hand, give you sort of a liberal arts education that's wide, and so you have a lot of you have seen a lot of things, but at the same time, you want job prospects. You can't maybe apply
Yep.
or just learn about abstract algebra the whole time. That doesn't seem conducive. So currently, how it's set up is pretty good, I would say, because the current requirements are kind of you have your sequence of calculus. At least at ASU, you have to take a 1 year sequence of Java programming, so you at least have seen some programming. And then outside of your core proof classes, where you learn sort of how to write a proof and what a real number is, and your basic analysis. Outside of that, you basically can choose whatever you want to take. So, the argument at that point is it the college's sort of responsibility to push the student into a place where they can get a nice job, or should they just offer things and it's up to the student to know what is conducive to get a job? And so I think it's the latter that's currently there, and I would say it's a good option. So in my own kind of path, I had taken all like the numerical analysis courses where you look at like how to solve an ODE or PDE system on the computer with Matlab, or usually. So I think I had maybe inadvertently set myself up with courses that tended to be useful later, but it's possible to go through and just look at graph theory and your abstract algebras.
Yeah, because I was gonna say that as you were talking, I was thinking there are so many theoretical classes because I majored in math as well, and that like I liked the number theory, I liked the abstract algebra. A lot of that doesn't seem very applicable, but having said that, I do feel like it teaches you to think in a way that does help you later on in terms of like the logical way that you have to think through a proof.
Oh, certainly,
Um,
yeah, yeah.
I feel like, I mean, you could even say in the actuarial sciences, the way you think might be, even though it may not be this theoretical proof stuff you're doing in abstract algebra, you could say it is applicable in a different kind of way.
Oh, yeah, I absolutely agree. Not to say graph theory is useless. It's probably one of the more useful things out there.
Right, right, yeah.
But the famous sort of analogy I've heard is a lot of these math training is like going to the gym or doing bench presses at the gym. You're not training yourself to go to a job and do bench presses. Like you're not expecting to
Yeah.
get pulled over and the cops like do some bench presses right now. Like it's more of being strong in general. You do bench presses to get strong, and you can do strong things. So
Yep.
if you can solve math problems, you can solve harder problems later on. Right?
Yep.
So I like that
So like
analogy.
if you go to the gym, then you might be able to cut down a tree,
No,
apply it in other
yeah,
ways. I like it.
strong things.
Yeah, no, it's true. So then you, after you were going towards the PhD, you ended up with the master's, and then you went into actuarial. What was kind of the motivation behind that? Was it like I got to make money in the field, and I don't make enough teaching, or I love the teaching, there's not as many opportunities out there? I'm just kind of curious what led to that.
No, I think you're spot on. I was in the adjunct world for a while, so I was teaching at Mesa Community College, and I still am there. And I had a course at Paradise Valley Community College, sort of across the valley. So I was ended up kind of teaching, and that was fun. I love teaching, but just the money wasn't great, and I was on my wife's health insurance, right, and stuff like this. So I was just kind of looking to start a career that had a path to it.
Yeah. Yep.
And I had actually interviewed for the full-time teaching spot at Chandler Gilbert Community College, and unfortunately didn't really get past the first interview, I suppose. But no, it was a good chance to see what they sort of want in when they hire somebody.
Yeah,
And
definitely.
it looks fun
And
to
it,
me, but
and it's
that's kind of the main
super.
reason.
It's kind of interesting to me how competitive it is to get like not only there's the professor positions, but like an adjunct position or an instructor or a lecturer. Like it's actually pretty crazy competitive. I wouldn't have thought that, but now that I'm kind of back in academia again, I'm seeing that it actually is.
Yeah, it's extreme.
So
So ended up in actuary basically just because Mr. Kyle Edrington decided to give me a chance. So shout out to EHC.
shout out to
Um,
EHC. Kyle's
every day
probably watching right now.
every day I get to be on the team is a good day for me. I can't really think of a joke. I'm just grateful to be here. So
That's cool. How'd you end up at EHC? Did you know Kyle before? Or?
No, I just kind of saw the LinkedIn post and gave it an application,
Oh, nice.
which
That's
is
cool.
sort of also how I got my internship. Which I've heard a few people say LinkedIn is useless, and for me, it's turned out pretty well.
Oh, it's yeah,
uh,
it's been super helpful for me too. I got one of my jobs through LinkedIn before. Um, yeah, I don't think it's useless.
Certainly.
And you also have a background in coding. I know we talked a little about this before. You and I have talked on the side about it. And you kind of have some side passions that you like to work on. I know you have a website and a lot of different things. Um, did you take any formal training in programming or computer science, or has that all been kind of on your own?
No, yeah. So all I did was the bare minimum at ASU, which is that year-long sequence in Java programming. You could
Okay.
have also chosen C++, which more or less seems to be the same. I think the purpose is to impart what an object-oriented language is.
Yep.
But outside of that, I had no other training. But when you go to some of that upper echelon numerical analysis courses and the grad program I was in, Matlab is really the language they like to use. So just kind of taught myself Matlab, which is a really near and dear to my heart language. Really cool. It's like a vector based language. So
I have not
um,
done hardly any MATLAB. I had one course way back. I think it was my freshman year in college because I actually started out in engineering.
oh yeah, okay.
Yeah, so I had like some intro course where we had to do some MATLAB stuff, but I mean, it's probably changed so much by then too. But yeah, I don't know much about it.
I would say it's pretty similar to R, just because both you seem to work with vectors as your
Okay.
main sort of
Yep.
object. But yeah, outside of that, no training. The internship I had done, which was at the MIT Lincoln Lab over there in Lexington, Massachusetts, outside of Boston. They also use MATLAB, which was
Oh,
interesting.
really?
So I got to do some serious programming at that point. So it was mainly just kind of learn by doing,
Yep.
which I would say is of course the best way to learn programming. Anyone can learn it if they just kind of take the time.
Yeah,
Like
and it's like
like a language.
if you have a project to work on, something that you know you want to do, it's a good way to learn it.
Yeah, start with a goal. So
Yeah.
my website, I have a few things I've thought of. One of the major ones I'm trying to flesh out is a Wikipedia random name generator. I just am fascinated by the idea of Wikipedia as a thing. Like it exists and it has all this articles about everything that humans know,
Yep.
and it just seems like a great repository for randomness. So maybe one day I can program like, what's your surfer name, and then it's an algorithm that spins and it's like, oh, Paul Dude Surfer Johnson, and it pops
Paul
up.
Dude, Paul Dude, Surfer Johnson. I like it.
So it just seems fun to work with, and it under the hood, right? The mathematical question is, how would you, build a random algorithm like that, and what even is a random sequence? How would you
Yeah.
mathematically define what random means? And that's something interesting to read at 10 p.m. On your phone when
Yeah.
you're not sleeping.
So what language are you planning to code this in?
Anything that's web based like that seems JavaScript seems to be the way to go. And that's again something I've just kind of picked at informally. But JavaScript seems pretty great. I think it's another object oriented language, and it's not terribly hard to read, but you can still do a lot of complicated stuff with it, which is
Yep.
cool.
Yeah, I found that programming, computer science in general, because I minored in computer science in school, that has been more useful to me over the years in my career than even my math degree. I mean, my math degree has been insanely helpful for the actuarial exams,
Mhm.
and then also, like we were talking about, just like a way of thinking. But in terms of actually applying a lot of stuff, I feel like being able to program is becoming very, very essential, especially in the actuarial space. Wouldn't you agree?
Oh yeah, definitely. I've had to pick up SAS, of course. I had seen SAS at ASU, but only because of a professor I took who liked SAS
Okay. Yep.
because he was old and SAS is old.
Yeah, SAS has been
So
around for quite a while.
so I had seen it, but at this point I've gotten pretty proficient in SAS, and it's really grown on me. When you get used to the macros in SAS, you can do more things than you might expect.
Yeah.
So that's kind of cool.
And you've
You know?
you've done a lot with it, and you've really like seems that you really enjoy the programming side of things.
Yeah,
I'm
that's
just
where I live.
curious, like what's been your favorite coding project, either personally or at work, just stuff that you've worked on.
Let's see. Yeah, number one is probably that recent work at EHC, pretty much with that 837, file type and how to break that down with SAS
Hmm.
and make because it's a start to finish job. You have to A, figure out what is this file and how to import it, and B, make it more efficient because you have to import thousands and thousands, and
Hmm.
so you run up against the quote unquote scary big data problem that statistician professors will tell you is the boogeyman, right?
Yep.
And then so you have to think about the efficiency. So that's a really cool project.
That's awesome.
The other one was at that internship where I used Matlab instead, and that was more of not efficiency, but the task that, and this was an internship where you have one job for the whole summer, and the job was improve this radar tracking ability. So mathematically, it falls under more maybe electrical engineering, where you're looking at quote unquote tracking. So
Hmm.
something like a Kalman filter or like a dynamical system. So more physics, but so the challenge there was being able to read some of these cutting edge papers on the subject and being able to code what you're seeing,
Yeah,
which of course is difficult. But I think it
definitely.
ended up making some impact. So
That's
maybe
awesome.
they still use it over there. Who knows?
That is pretty cool. So that was all MATLAB based.
Yeah, that was great.
Well,
Luckily, I had taken a course at ASU about that subject before I went, so that
that no,
was
that helps a
great.
lot. Speaking of the whole big data thing that you brought up, this is such like a buzzword now, and big data and data science. I feel like the word data science. I wanted to talk to you about this just because we're both in the math, data, actuarial kind of field. Um, I'm curious how you would define it because I have heard so many people define that word very differently. There are like true data scientists that like have the data science theory, and then there's people that work with data that say they do data science. Like, how would you define that? Since that seems to be like an up and coming field.
Yeah, that's it's funny that you have titles out there, professor of data science, and
Yep,
the term is ambiguous.
I know.
That's funny, but yeah, I would just say it's some mix of statistics, maybe computer science, and software engineering. And without some component from each, it doesn't seem quite to be data
Hmm.
science. Um, one of the so if you see a job posting that just says data scientist, of course that's a little ambiguous. You would want to see something like machine learning engineer, then you would know, oh, okay, this is probably a PhD level position, and you're doing the math, right?
Yep.
But if you see maybe it could be data analyst, and you're not so much doing machine learning, you're just kind of cleaning data and making presentations. So I think the big one is HR departments use the term, and if no one's really told them what it is that they should be using. But I
Yep.
think at the core, I've heard someone, and I like to read about some of this stuff on Quora, which is an interesting like social media type website where the discussions tend to be more academic. But so it's shout out to Quora, of course. But I've seen one of the cool analogies I've seen for that is data science is like preparing a meal or sort of being a chef. So stage one of cooking is prepping your stuff. So mise en place, right? You have to set out your
Hmm.
ingredients and chop them up. So in that step, which is probably your data cleaning, it's what do I do with null values, right? Oh, there's an address in my age column. What do I do with that? So cleaning the data and validating and defining maybe your goals. What am I going to make at this meal? Then the second step, of course, is depending on what you decided your goal is, you're cooking the stuff. You're getting your grill ready. Maybe you're doing factor analysis or PCA analysis.
Yep.
So you actually perform some method where your goal is to arrive at some information or a decision, maybe so feature construction or classification, something like this. And then the last step is you have to serve the food. You make the food, and to serve the food is making your presentation. Here's some charts, and here's what I did, and here's why I did it, and here's why it works. So I think data science is the conglomeration of that whole chain of events, and what do you need to do the chain of events? Of course, depends on what field you're in, but some mix of statistics, software, and computer science seems to be the main ingredients there.
Yeah, no,
Um,
I like it. That's kind of from what I've studied and read and from my background. I would say that definitely is the foundation, is having the statistics, having the computer science, and really kind of combining those pieces with the data. Um, and a lot of it does have to do with like the predictive analytics and the machine learning side of things. There's like the theoretical data science side, but there are the, like you mentioned, like the prepping side, the presentation side, all of that kind of gets involved. And I think that's why the word gets used so, uh, I don't know what the word is, like flippantly,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
is like a lot of people think that just pulling data is data science, and that is actually a piece of it. That is a piece of data science, but there's so much more to it. So it's kind of an interesting word, and I wanted to talk to someone else who was in math to see what you thought about that.
No, it's interesting. Yeah.
Because even actuarial exams are starting to get more into the data science side, because they restructured all the exams and they've got like the SRM exam, and they have like a lot of the statistical theory, a little bit of data science type stuff, some predictive analytics and things like that within the exam, which I thought was interesting, like some classification methods, things of that nature.
Oh wow.
Um, so there's definitely overlap with actuarial science, where you can apply data science type things. So that was interesting.
No, it's. I think
But
it's maybe at the end of the day, it's a, sort of a byproduct of this divide between industry and academia. You
hmm
have the folks at Harvard making the cool statistics sort of methods, or maybe your machine learning methods, and the people in industry sort of don't care.
yeah,
So
yep, yep,
they just kind of want to do what they've always done. Yeah.
totally, yeah.
Um,
Well, I mean, sometimes just a very simple summarize the data and a graph suffices. If
yeah,
that
yeah,
can
of
answer
course.
your question, then. But sometimes the more advanced methods can be very helpful. So
It's fun. It's a cool problem. So if people want to call themselves data scientists, and I would expect that they do some mix of those things. Yeah,
yeah,
statistics and
yep.
computer science and software. Um,
So you are a man of many interests. It sounds like. I'm curious your three favorite hobbies.
so the first one I thought of was I have sort of an embarrassing amount of hours playing online golf,
Do you
and
really?
and in particular, it's just called Golf with Friends and it's
Okay.
on Steam. I think it's mainly on the computer, but it's just the coolest game to get together with your friends, especially nowadays where you're not maybe meeting with people face to face as much. But it's a cool game to just sort of sit there, and the controls are very simple, and you can just kind of talk to your friends and hit some balls around. So I shout out to Golf with Friends.
Nice.
Interesting conversations, and it's just kind of a way that, at least for my core group, me and Allie and some of my good friends, just sort of play that a lot.
Do
So
they? Isn't there like a bunch of games like that? There's one, Words with Friends. It's just kind of like Scrabble. I
oh
used to
yeah,
play that one. I don't know if they have other games like all named with
oh,
friends, but I've never heard
I
of
don't
Golf
like
with Friends.
I don't like losing, so I don't play that one.
Ah, okay, there you go. I'm I'm terrible at that game actually. So
Yeah. The second one I've really been getting into lately is chess, which you know sounds kind of nerdy, but what do you expect from a conversation between two math guys, right? Yeah.
yep, there exactly.
So it's fun because
Do you
chess is
do
one of
like a lot
those
of online chess, or do you do mostly like the physical board with someone else?
chess, yeah, just online chess,
Okay,
chess.com.
nice.
It's easy to get into. You don't. I'm not very good, so I find myself in a losing position in chess almost immediately. But it's fun because you learn how to strategize and sort of persevere from a losing position.
hmm
And I've realized that it's pretty much exactly like a large part of coding, or maybe debugging code. The code gives you some frustrating bug, that's the losing position, and you can't flip the chessboard over, and leave. You need to solve the bug.
Yeah, yeah.
So playing the chess, it's fun, and b it's kind of helped me get into that headspace and become more resilient to frustrating bugs and in a losing position.
Do you play poker?
I played like maybe a little online poker, but not with people, like
Okay.
computers. I'm not
Yeah,
very
because
good. Yeah.
people always, like, whenever I say statistics or probability, it's always like, oh, you must be really good at poker. It's like, well, I've actually learned a lot of the poker hands because a lot of the math classes have problems with the poker hands, but I honestly am not a big poker player.
Yeah, same,
I'm like,
same.
I've always thought that's something I should get more into because I think it'd be fun. I just honestly haven't. But people always comment on that when you mention statistics. So,
Yeah, certainly a background knowledge you need to be successful in poker, and probably it's true in chess where you need to have a large repository of moves and what works and what doesn't.
yeah,
But I think in chess that you don't need to memorize maybe so much, but you can have a good time even if you don't know much.
yeah,
So that's always
yeah,
fun.
exactly.
Um, Sort of the third one was this last semester I had gotten into learning French, which is fun.
You were
Just
mentioning that the other day. That is very interesting.
mainly because I get a free class at Mesa, so decided to just kind of do French. It's mainly so I can know how to order the good wine, right? When I go to
Yeah,
France or
seriously.
France or Canada, but it's
You
it's itself
red
kind of a
wine or
fun,
white wine guy?
definitely red,
Yeah,
and
agreed.
it's weird. I've tried $5 bottles and maybe I've tried the $50, and they both seem pretty good. They both seem kind of comparable.
I mean, I agree with that. I'm not like I can't tell the difference. You can tell slight differences, but usually not enough for $45 of a
Yeah, right.
difference.
So I think it's just one of those things that you
Someone's
know,
probably furious at us right now.
yeah, no, they're screaming over there
Yeah.
in France.
To
Your French
to
audience.
all the French audience, French mathematicians and actuaries, I apologize.
No. It's of course an interesting thing to try to learn a language, and it's been fun because I can try to read the subtitles on Netflix,
Yeah,
and another big reason is I can read the French memes, right? So when I run out of English memes, now I have more.
that's perfect. By the way, shout out to Siegfried. He said, "Hi, Paul. Good conversations." Thanks, Siegfried. We got to do another. He's done. We've done some live problems on my YouTube channel where we do like
Oh yeah,
actuarial problems. So we got to do another one of those, Siegfried, if you're still watching.
I need to
Um,
catch up with that. Yeah.
yeah, I I've been like, yeah, I've been on winter break for those who don't know, and just like between my my job as an actuary and going to grad school and teaching as well. It's like when winter break came, I went from 100 to 0. It was like,
Oh
it's nice to
yeah.
have a break.
Well, we need those zero moments.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly.
So recommend
But,
learning something like French to folks if they're sitting at home and they can't go out maybe because of COVID, but it's just something cool to pour some energy into, and you get to maybe when COVID's over, I can travel to
yeah,
somewhere that speaks
yeah.
French, and that would be fun.
So on that note, what book do you recommend to everyone? What's your favorite book?
So yeah, I would say like I like biographies. So I would say the one on Churchill by Andrew Roberts is it's a huge it's a big physically a big book, but the man was of course pretty interesting. He has a lot of biographies written about him, and then he did a lot of interesting things under pressure. And I would say it's pretty well written. The Andrew Roberts, the author, is a great author, but I get a little bored of myself, so it's fun to see how more interesting people lived and dealt with stuff.
That's cool. Are you into history or math history at all?
Yeah, I would say maybe history more. I know more history than maybe math history, but history is cool. Yeah,
It's like math history is something that I wanted to read a little more about, like just random facts like that Newton developed a lot of what we know about calculus during a pandemic. And I mean, I didn't know about that until this pandemic started.
oh
Just
yeah,
random
yeah,
stuff like that is super interesting. He kind of shut
that's cool.
himself away and just thought about cool stuff. But
No, that's cool. Yeah, so Andrew Roberts is a pretty good one. He had another one on Napoleon, of course, another interesting figure of
nice.
history.
That's cool.
But maybe more accessible reading. Artemis by Andy Weir is a sci-fi book. It's extremely good.
Really?
It's just simply good. It's a kind of a riveting story, and it's the characters, you care about them, and great action on the moon, like
Nice.
stuff blowing up on the moon. What's not to like, right? So
That's awesome.
that's
But
maybe my main plug, that one.
by the way, Ryan Clark, nice message. I'm just reading this out loud. He said it's a great idea to learn French. So props to you, Joe, for that suggestion. He's been
Nice.
working on learning Spanish. Feels good to have something challenging to learn that doesn't involve studying for an exam. I agree, Ryan.
Yeah, that's
I definitely
I.
agree with that.
It's a great thing to avoid studying for exams. Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
it's so hard. Like when you're going through the exam process and like every day you're thinking about that. I'm assuming, Ryan, you're probably going through that process right now. So props to you. But yeah, it can be brutal, and it's nice to think about other things.
Oh yeah. I'm in a book club with my wife and a couple friends. I'm also in a tea club and a wine club and a
Wow,
bunch of other things
you got it all going on, man.
that make me look
That's,
more lame and lame as I say them. But
makes you just look more awesome. So many
uh,
hobbies.
the one we read recently was Strangers on a Train. It's a sort of a 1950s book where it's a cool premise. So the premise is two guys meet on a train, of course, and one of them doesn't like his father and is like, "Oh, this is the perfect alibi. If I can get this guy to kill my father, maybe I can kill someone for him." Right?
Yeah.
Because
Ooh, interesting.
so that's a cool. It was a cool book.
Nice.
Hitchcock made it into a movie a long time ago.
Oh, really? Okay,
I
that's
might check
cool.
it out.
I
Um,
got I got to get more into reading. I've never been a huge reader. I read occasionally, but when I do, I really enjoy it. So maybe a book like that would be riveting for me. Um,
what
sounds
I found as
interesting.
well is if you do driving or if, just simply walking outside, like I listen to Audible.
Oh, I like
Not
Audible. Yeah.
not sponsored by Audible,
Yep.
but I use it quite a lot.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Definitely.
it's good
So
stuff.
so favorite mathematician and why?
There's lots of course to choose from. I usually go with Gauss, right? Carl Gauss.
Nice.
He has
Good
a lot of
choice.
interesting. It's easy to go with Euler, right? He has a bunch of stuff, but maybe Gauss because he has a lot
So
of
you pronounce it Euler. That's how I pronounce it as well.
I think that's the
I
German
hear people say
way.
Euler
Um,
sometimes, and I'm
I've
like,
always
I don't know. I think Euler's right because I've heard professors say. Well, I don't know if the professors are right, but yeah.
yeah, I'm not super sure. I'm like 90% sure it's Euler,
Okay.
but no, Gauss is another good one. I just love his story about, and I don't actually know if this is completely true or not, but as some maybe as a kid, Gauss was maybe angered his elementary school teacher, and they sent him over to the corner. Carl, go add the numbers 1 to 100. I don't want to see you.
Oh, I've heard this one.
I don't know if that's true, but he what is true is he came up with the quick way to do it. Right, he added 1 to 100 in a couple seconds or whatever, and that paved the way
He
for
did
the summation
n
formula.
times n plus one divided by two.
Yeah, he's the one who
Yeah.
came up with that, and
Yep.
it's just one of that's the perfect example of solving a hard problem with mathematical thinking, and
Yep.
it's just clever. And I think everyone that
It
I've at
is.
least showed that to is like, oh wow, that's
Yeah,
why didn't I think of that?
because
Right?
what he did was he said 1 plus 100 is 101. 2 plus
Yeah.
99 is 101. 3 plus 98 is 101. He's like, oh, okay, I can do it a lot faster, and that's how he. Yeah.
So I just love that story, and yeah, that's a good one. So, but another a runner up perhaps is Galois, right? Of Galois theory and abstract
Oh
algebra.
yeah. Yep.
I that might be a contender just because he had invented all this algebra theory when he was younger than I am right now. Maybe he was like 22 or something. But and then he went out, and dueled somebody and lost, and of course unfortunately died in this duel. And what else could you really want out of
That's
life? That's
so
just the pinnacle.
that
That's the pinnacle.
seriously, that is epic. He came up with Galois theory and then died in a duel. That wow,
Yeah, the
that's
1700s
impressive.
or something.
I
But
had never heard that story.
it's a cool one to read
I,
on
I
Wikipedia.
know I struggled with Galois theory when I was in abstract algebra, but I didn't know that story.
I avoided the class. Yeah.
Smart. Oh man,
That's good stuff.
that's crazy. So okay, on this note, favorite theorem or math fact?
Oh man, yeah, that's a lot to go on there. The n plus 1/2 is probably one of my go-tos as well. The summation formula, but maybe a more overreaching one is I took a year sequence in complex analysis from Al Bogus over there at ASU.
Oh, nice.
I wonder if he's still the director, but fantastic professor. He makes the subject just great to listen to and learn about. But one of the sort of pivotal theorems you see there is Cauchy's integral formula or Cauchy's integral theorem or whatnot, where you can essentially solve and one of the applications is solving hard integrals. But you can essentially state, right, using curves on the complex plane, this integral around poles. So you kind of reduce, hard problems down to summation, or something really easy like this. And that's just kind of really cool. One of the coolest theorems, and it's super applicable to a lot of things. Another runner-up is sort of the stuff I got into towards the end of my time at ASU, where the regression stuff. So Chebyshev had a bunch of interesting theorems that had to do with polynomial regressions or polynomial interpolations and stuff like that. Maybe the name for it is just Chebyshev's theorems, but he states what basically statisticians would call, I think, ridge regression, and that a lot of theory is due to him. So lesser known guy. So I might go with that one.
That's a good one. Yeah, ridge and lasso with regression is stuff that was pretty new to me. Like I had done regression techniques before, but I didn't know a whole lot about that. And the actual theory behind it is pretty insane. I don't understand all of it, but like it sounds like there's a lot of linear algebra and a lot that goes behind all that.
Did you have to take a standalone linear algebra course going into NAU, or?
I did. So well, my undergrad in math, I had a linear algebra course, and then now getting my master's in stats, there's a theory of linear models course, which has a lot of linear algebra, but it's like applied to statistics. So that's really, and then I've used linear algebra in like some other courses, but I didn't have to take, like, I know there are some more advanced linear algebra courses that I didn't have to take. So what about you?
I definitely took maybe one or two of those advanced linear algebra courses.
Okay.
Really, that's probably the one field of math I think is worth really diving into, because its fingers are all in the other fields of math. Quite a lot more than you might expect.
And I think it's actually more applicable than probably most math courses in terms of like computational stuff. You can do a lot with linear algebra.
I've heard the sentiment that some professors think linear algebra is what you should build your education to go to instead of calculus, right?
Interesting.
Where it tends to go to now.
I could see that.
So there's some arguments there that are good. Yeah,
I would think so. I would say there's arguments even more stats focused. Maybe I'm biased, but I feel like in the world we live in now, so many decisions are based on kind of synthesizing data, even if it's not like analyzing data. Like you might be out and about at the grocery store looking at things, and you're kind of synthesizing data in your head, looking at prices. Like a lot of what you do is some basic stats. I'd argue that it's pretty useful.
Oh, absolutely.
But since I'm a stats guy, I was going to say my favorite theorem is the central limit theorem. So that's my go-to. And actually, I had seen the central limit theorem in classes like a while back. I had never seen the actual formal proof of it until my math stat course, and it's pretty intense. You get to the end, you're like, that is amazing. Like it took the entire class for the professor to go through it, but it was pretty cool.
Is the proof sort of based on like real sequences of numbers and the properties of that, or?
No, the proof was based on.
I totally forget.
I have to look back at it. We did some sort of inversion. I remember that. I got to look back at the proof. I'm not prepared to talk about it right now.
Oh, no worries. Yeah.
Maybe on one of my next YouTubes I'll go through it. It was a really cool proof though.
Oh yeah, that's maybe I should have mentioned that one. Yeah.
It was one of those things where it's like it's cool to see it, and then it's like you just know how to apply the central limit theorem, and you don't really need to use it again. But it was pretty cool.
Oh yeah, for sure.
All right, well, Joe, I think that was about all I had. Interesting guy. By the way, what's your website? We should throw that out there for everyone.
Oh, it's just my name.com. So joesadow.com.
joesadow.com. He's got some interesting stuff out there.
Posted some of my teaching notes that if you're interested in algebra or calculus, I have some notes on there about that. But I like to post, maybe little short book reviews or little things that I just kind of think about. I don't know. It's maybe shouting into the void of the internet, but it's just something fun, I think, to organize my thoughts every once in a while.
That's awesome. I like it. Hey, Joe, I appreciate you coming on. And well, I'm sure I'll be talking to you soon since we work together.
Of
Um,
course. No, thanks for having me.
yeah, for sure. It
No,
was fun.
you're a great host and easy to talk to. So I hope we do more of
Thanks.
these. Yeah.
Thanks. I appreciate it. I hope everyone's enjoying these, and sorry there's been a long period of time where I haven't interviewed anyone, so I need to get better at keeping these up. But yeah, I have a few ideas of some interesting ones coming up. So anyway, stay posted, everyone. We'll see you all next time. Thanks again, Joe.
Thanks, guys.
And we are off.